What's up, Dolphin Nation? What's up, Fence Talk Nation? We're gonna go and cover today's topic: what's wrong with Miami Dolphins and what they should be doing going forward. I'm gonna go ahead and start out with an article from Dave Hyde from the Sun Sentinel. A Dolphins to-do list now that hope is sunk is what he titled this article. 11 days. That's how long hope lasted this season. 11 stinking days. The time from the Miami Dolphins' embarrassing start in Indianapolis on September the 7th to the third loss of the season, Thursday night in Buffalo. 11 mind-numbing, reality-biting, football-failing days. That's all you got before confidence was gone and concerns became reality, and the only question left is what owner Stephen Ross meant by unleashing reports that he didn't want to fire coach Mike McDaniel, but might if fans demand it by not showing up to games. Well, there's another question. What do they try to accomplish now? The players will say, the media will write, and you all cheer how the season can be righted with a couple of upcoming wins against the New York Jets, Carolina Panthers, but the facts are the facts. Only 4 previous 100 out of 164 teams starting 0-3 since 1990 made the playoffs. 2 of them won bad divisions. Buffalo at 3-0 isn't giving up the AFC East. So again, what's to accomplish now? Consider if South Carolina quarterback, the Norris Sellers, LSU Garrett Nussmeier, or someone else number 1 pick worthy. Yep, the Dolphins will be quarterback shopping again. And it's tricky to have general manager Chris Greer's front office rating players when Greer looks week to week right now. But the idea isn't to decide on a quarterback. It's to get ready and read the talent level of the top couple to see if they're viable franchise changers. That's because Ross could offer McDaniel $100,000 for every loss in the manner he did with former coach Brian Flores. He was joking with Flores, he told the league investigators. But shouldn't he joke about tanking? Where's this season's code red? Let's be clear. We're not there at 0-3, but 0-4. Or 1-6, there's no playing a sanctity of the game card. The owner and front office embrace tanking to start the season in a way no team ever should. May 19th mantra. Smart organizations don't need to tank. And if you're not smart, don't try it. But if a season is sunk, that's another matter. The Miami Heat were done in 2008 after Shaquille O'Neal was traded and Dwayne Wade was injured. They tanked the last half of that season and earned a second-round pick. They took Michael Beasley, who didn't work out, so again, no guarantees. Demand young players be developed. This young team is how McDaniel framed this roster in his opening remarks Friday. They earned the season they entered the season as the 19th youngest team with an average age of just over 27. But McDaniel point, they're playing the kids. Buffalo started 16 homegrown players Thursday. The Dolphins started 11, and 4 of those were rookies. Left tackle Patrick Ball, in his second year, has impressed in a manner confirmed by Pro Football Focus, grading him 10th among offensive tackles right now. Rookie running back Ollie Gordon showed a power gear against the Buffalo that will demand more play. Top draft pick, Kenneth Grant, 154th among defensive tackles, and Jonas Savine, 84 out of 88 guards, needing help to find their footing. Ditto for cornerback Dante Trader Jr., 87th among safeties. Jordan Phillips, 106th among defensive tackles. Jason Marshall Jr., 142nd of 143 cornerbacks. Just ahead of former Dolphins, Noah Igbenogany. No trading graphics. This doesn't have to be said, does it? Well, it wasn't said when Dave Wannstedt and Rick Spielman traded future picks in an attempt to save their last season. So find out Tyreek's trade worth and if he's tradable with his contract and domestic violence allegations. This is a couple losses away, too. But it's time to understand the earlier you trade him, the more value he has. He remains a great receiver, but he's not coming back in 2026. He's not being used down in the downfield passing game. His $10 million salary is something most teams can take. A third-round pick? Maybe. Decide on the best interim coach you could promote, if necessary. McDaniel, like Greer, is week to week. The best football decisions Ross has made is hiring Todd Bowles and Dan Campbell as interim coaches. They're head coaches now. None of Ross' ex-head coaching hires are head coaches. Anthony Weaver is the obvious interim idea. But is there a hidden Bowles or Campbell? No new contracts. Again, does it need to be said? The issue here is edge rusher Jalen Phillips being in his final year of his contract. He has two significant injuries. He played decently in his first few games. If he plays well across October, Dolphins might have to revisit it. Play linebacker Willie Gay more. This isn't about the future. It's just to see if his loud July and August meant something on a defense that needs help. Ross has to decide who to listen to this time. His daughter and son-in-law are more involved in the operations now. We'll see what that means, but going back to his ownership start, Ross has listened to a changing cast. Dolphins insider Mike D, Matt Higgins, Tom Garfinkel, in making hires and changing directions. They can also start updating the list of best available general managers and coaches. That's assuming Ross has such a list. He should have one, considering he knew this since last season. Big changes might be needed. From the talent on the list, you can decide what kind of organization you want. One like Philadelphia, run by the GM Howie Roseman, or one like Kansas City, run by the coach Andy Reid, or, well, a only run one like the Dolphins for the past 15 years. Hope lasted only 11 days for the season. Now the harder work starts. Guys, there you have his thoughts. He's basically telling Ross that change is needed and that key pieces must stay or go. Now we're going to go ahead and listen to Kurt Warner, the Hall of Fame quarterback, as he breaks down last week's interception by Tua Tagovailoa actually Tua's fault or the wide receiver's fault. We're only going to listen to a little bit of it, about maybe 15 to 18 minutes, and then go from there.
All right. This is for those that like to understand context, like to study ball, as my logo says right there. This is for all the coaches that are out there. Feel free to get this to Coach McDaniel if you want. But this, to me, is why you can have all the opinions you want about Tua. That's fine. Okay? Lots of opinions that I have about Tua. But I just feel like everything has to be within context when there are certain plays. And so just to yell at Tua and say this was a terrible interception, I want you to understand the play. So here's what I'm going to do for you. I am going to coach you this play based on how I would coach it if I was coaching and installing this play. Okay? So the play we have is a play that I call popcorn. Okay? So it's a pop by this outside guy. It's a corner by the inside guy. It's a flat by number 3. Okay? So corner to this side, and this side is a play that I call under. It's an under to the outside with a dig over the top of it. Okay? All right. So I'm going to teach it because to me, details matter. Details are everything on these kind of plays, and details are everything in terms of how this thing played out. Okay, so I'm going to start with the under up top. Okay, and so you find your landmarks, as a coach. Hey, this is where we like to do the different things that we like to do. Okay, and so for the slot receiver right here, he's going to run the in route. Okay, so what I want to do with this in route is I want to tuck him in a position where on the snap, he is going to burst outside 2 to 3 yards. Okay, he's going to burst outside 2 to 3 yards. He's going to push up 12 yards, and he's going to be flat. So his initial alignment is going to be determined by where I want the push-up, the vertical push-up. Okay, so I'm going to say I want it about 2 yards inside the number. So I'm going to pull Tyreek a little bit tighter here on that. Okay, and I'll tell you why in a second. Okay, and then this under out here is going to be a controlled under. So push with speed and then control, and then you're going to come in and you're not going to come flying in here. You're going to be controlled coming in there. Okay, so why do I teach the technique the way that I'm talking about? Okay, so the first thing is we want to understand who's our primary receiver on this play. So this guy is our primary receiver on that concept to the left-hand side. Okay, so the one reason I want to tuck Tyreek in a little bit tighter here is because it also brings the linebacker in a little bit tighter. So if that's the window, that first window, come off of this, and if that linebacker stays tucked inside, boom, I'm hitting the under right where that square is on the arrow. So I want to tuck my guy in tighter because it tucks the linebacker in tighter and it goes to open that window. Okay, so that's why I want him tighter. Okay, I'm going to burst him outside on the snap and then push him vertical. Okay, what are you going to do? Why are you doing that? Why are you bursting him outside? Okay, so there's 2 reasons for that. So I'm going to burst him outside to get leverage on the same linebacker we're talking about, and then I'm going to push him up vertical. Okay, so the first thing is if I'm trying to throw that under, it creates a bit of an interference for that linebacker. So he's tucked inside, and he works to match with that, but he can't get through my in, and so I can throw the under to the outside. So that's the first part. But let's just say that linebacker who's in position there, when I burst, he goes flying out past me when I burst. Okay, so he goes flying out there and he passes me up on the burst, or he gets a lot of width right now on my burst. Okay, and he's in a position to better take away the under. Well, obviously, if that's the case, what I just did by moving that linebacker with width and making him move fast right now is I've opened a better window to the inside to hit the under. To hit the in over the top of it. Okay, so I am using his alignment and his movement to give the quarterback a better read, because the more movement a defense makes, the better read we get. Okay, and so I'm trying to force movement by that linebacker. What are you going to do? I'm going to burst outside of you. If you don't move, boom, I'm hitting the under to the outside. I'm going to burst outside of you. When you move fast and you push to get to me, now all you've done is open up that window to the inside. Okay, and the next thing that we get by bursting that guy outside and pushing him on the in is the biggest problem on this play when I'm reading to that side. Okay, when I'm reading to that side, I want to read to that side when there is only one underneath defender to that side. Okay, so I want to read to that side because obviously I'm going to get a 2-on-1 on that linebacker and I'm going to have what I want. The biggest problem on that play would be the next linebacker. The next underneath type player would be the biggest problem. So that burst outside also keeps me away from this other linebacker. I only want to throw that ball on the left side of the ball. Okay, I never want him to be able to cross to the middle or to the other side because that brings other people involved. Okay, so all of those details for just that simple little in under route. Okay, now we're going to go to the other side, the popcorn side. All right, first thing we have to always realize is where's the ball on the field. Okay, so I might have different landmarks for Waddle right here, who's running the pop based on where the ball is on the field. And why do I have different landmarks? Let's just start with Okay, when I used to do this and run this to the short side, we would actually put our receiver on the outside of the numbers. Okay, we would put him to the outside numbers. So I'm going to just show it up top because you can see a little bit better the spacing that you would have with the flat and the hook if you were on the top of the numbers. Okay, so we're on the top of the numbers is what we liked to do when we were to the short side. Okay, when we were to the short side. And why we like the top of the numbers, because you can see, and even this middle linebacker here that ends up getting the interception, where he's at right now is he's actually over the ball. But his normal position is going to be to the strong side of the formation. So he's going to be outside that hash normally. Okay, so why we want the top of the numbers is because we want this guy to have to go as far as possible to be able to take this away. Because what we know on this particular play, once again, we're going to have the flat and the pop here, is, when we read that aspect of this, we're actually reading the outside linebacker type player. And so if he rolls to the flat, we throw the pop right behind him. If he stays inside, we throw the flat. So we don't even want this next guy, this Mike linebacker here, to be involved in the process, right? That's not what the read is off of, because if we've got those two guys there, then obviously they have the advantage. So this guy can go cover the flat, and this guy can go cover the pop, and we can throw an interception, and everything is in the advantage of the offense. Okay, so that to me is the first thing, is making sure this guy here has the right width based on the situation that you're in. Okay, and the right width is based off of this flat route as well. Okay, so if we were running this to the field, so try to envision this. If we're running this to the field, I'm probably not going to have my pop runner be on the outside edge of the numbers, okay? Because if the flat has to get past him, okay, it takes longer for the flat to get past him. And so we have to understand the relationship of the flat to the pop. So short side will be a little different than the wide side. Wide side, maybe that landmark is 2 yards inside the numbers. Okay, so we can get that cross, and the back has to go basically the same distance to get across you. Okay, the other thing that could determine it is, where is my flat coming from? So let's just say we move this receiver over to this side, and then he runs the flat. Well, now I could be wider if I wanted to, because the flat is coming from a wider position. So all of that stuff matters. All of those details matter. Okay? So, again, just talking through what we want to do. So, biggest question that I always ask when I'm installing or designing a play is, who is the biggest problem on the play? Okay? And so I already mentioned it. This guy is the biggest problem on this play, because based on what we have with the route, okay, so again, we have a corner route, we have a pop route, and we have a flat route. So based on what we have, and specifically based on this guy right here, and there's one reason why I hate the corner route on this concept. It's what everybody runs. It's the universal concept. I hate the corner on it. Kurt, why do you hate the corner on it? Because the corner, if you're trying to throw this route, most of the time you're trying to throw the pop or the flat. That's just the way it is. The corner route is an afterthought and something that just a happening, but you're trying to throw the pop or the flat. Okay, so by putting a corner route on this, 90% of the time, he's dead. Okay, because there's a defender that's going to be standing back in the deep area of the field, and so we're running the corner to coverage. And the guy that we're running him to doesn't affect the rest of the concept. That guy does not affect the pop or the flat in most situations. In most situations, he doesn't affect that. So he just becomes a dead player that we hardly ever throw it to. Okay, I'm going to get back to that in a second. Okay, so key is this Mike linebacker. Okay, we need to keep him or make sure that he's out of the equation, so we can isolate the outside linebacker with the pop and the flat. And so what the key is for me on this particular play is this receiver right here. His job has to be, if you are running this concept against this coverage, it has to be to slow down the Mike linebacker. That has to be his job. If he does not do that, then what we saw last night and what we're going to see on this tape is exactly what's going to happen a lot of the times against the top players in the world. Is that guy is going to push through and intercept this ball because he doesn't have any other responsibility. Everything about this play says play to your responsibility, match to number 3 who comes over here to this side and runs a flat, and then just, see the quarterback, and if he works to this side, just work with him, okay? But, so what Miami does, if you watch that guy that I was just talking about, what Miami does is they run their corner straight vertical right here, okay? So with his straight vertical, you'll notice that the Mike linebacker does nothing. He runs right through it, and he's the one that gets the interception, okay? So this is, to me, coaching. This is understanding that this guy is the biggest problem on this play. So what am I going to do to influence that guy? What am I going to do to influence that guy so that Tua can make this throw or make this read? Okay, maybe one thing you say is, hey, we're going to put it to the other hash. If we put it to the other hash, he's got further to go to get to my pop, and maybe I got a better shot with spacing. That's maybe one thing. But the other thing is that this number 3 needs to seam release. So even if he's running a corner route here, he needs to seam release at that linebacker. Okay, so if he seam releases, okay, so this is part of the conversation I was having with Emmanuel Acho, about this play. And he was telling me that guy is going to match to this flat every time. That's his responsibility. I'm going to disagree that if I run at him, if I'm this guy and I run at that linebacker, I run at the outside number of that linebacker, if he tries to push through this, he's going to hit me. I'm going to run into him. I am going to create a natural rub for this pop. That's the first part. Second part is, if I run at him, it's his responsibility. His responsibility is inside first. Okay, so if I run at him, he's going to most likely slow down, right? Respect me, try to jam me. He's going to do something if I run at him. He's not just going to be blind to the guy that's running right to his responsibility and run through this and pick. Okay? So you attack at him. Okay, now the problem with attacking at him is, I already told you that the corner route is not my favorite route. And why it's not my favorite route is because A, it doesn't come open very often. And B, it's counterintuitive to seam inside on a corner route. Why is that, Kurt? Well, because the 2 times that I would use the corner route, most likely on this play or really any play, is when I get cover 2. Okay, so they would drop this defender to the flat. So obviously he can cover the flat. We've got an extra linebacker here for the pop. And so if I get cover 2, I might like to high-low this corner to this side. Okay, so that's one situation where I may use the corner route on this particular play. So I don't really want to seam inside on that corner route, because the whole key, if I'm running this against cover 2, is getting leverage on this safety. So if I go seam inside, I might lose leverage on the safety. Now the safety covers the corner, the flat is covered by the corner back, and we've got nothing. So it's not conducive to win against cover 2 by seaming inside. Okay, the other way or situation in which I may use the corner route is against man-to-man coverage. And in man-to-man coverage, once again, I don't want to inside release a corner route. You always want to win to leverage, so you'd want to outside release to win on a corner route also. So it's not conducive to attack and seam inside. But I need the seam inside if I get zone coverage, or what I call corner off zone coverage, so I can isolate this guy and the Mike linebacker doesn't get involved. Okay, so Kurt, what are you doing? So the first thing I'm doing is I'm not running a corner route on that. Okay, that's what I'm not doing, because again, it's not conducive for what this play is designed for. Remember on the top I asked, what's the primary? When you're looking at this play, this guy here is the primary. That's who I'm trying to throw it to on this particular concept. I'm working him in the flat, but that's who I'm trying to throw to, or to me, who this play is designed for, unless you get a special man coverage thing. But even if you get man coverage, you're reading it flat to pop. And then over the top to the corner. So it's not just designed for the corner. So what are you going to do, Kurt? Okay, what I'm going to do on this play is I'm going to put this inside guy on one of two things. I'm going to put him also on a pop. So it's pop, pop, flat. Okay, so there's a seam release. Now I can hold off the Mike linebacker because I want to throw it to the outside guy. But if they push through, who's there to cover the inside pop? Nobody's there. Okay, so understanding what this play is designed for, I'm going to get my advantage, going in that manner. Okay, the other thing that I may do is run a play that I call popping. So
all right, guys. So you let me know what you think. I agree with Kurt Warner. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. It could be threefold actually. I'm not going to fully blame Tua, but it could be coaching, and it could be that Tanner Conner, which I believe that's the one that was supposed to run the correct route, ran the wrong route, and Tua read it the way he was supposed to. But since Tanner Conner ran the wrong route, the interception happened and game over. Leave me your thoughts down below. The video is not over, but let me go ahead and tell you why I believe. Well, not tell you. Let me go ahead and play why I agree with Tom Pelissero that the Mike McDaniel firing is not as easy as people think, unless owner Stephen Ross is willing to pay the contract extension money that he extended him for last season, because he still has 2 years of his contract.
This sort of stuff.
Here's what I would tell you, Rich, because there's going to be people who talk about that game last night, which was a loss still, even though they were certainly competitive in that game, as well. They saved their jobs. I never got the sense, in speaking with people and understanding the situation, I never got any sense that this was even a consideration. Now, you lose 100-0 last night. A lot of different things can change. That was not that type of game. You saw that they were competitive, especially on the offensive side of the football. You got the ball in the hands of Tyreek. You got the ball, at least in the end zone, once to Jalen Waddle. You really seem to have found something in Ollie Gordon. The issues that they ran into were very much the issues we've seen through the course of this season, and a lot of it boils down to Tua Tagovailoa. I know that the quarterback gets, more of the credit than they should when you win. They get more of the blame when you lose. But he's got 5 turnovers this season, and they have been some big ones, and they've been some fundamental ones. You go back to week 1 in Indianapolis, Lou Anarumo just calls a standard zone drop, and Tua throws a ball right to Leatu Latu that looks like he's targeting him on the play for a pick, as that thing kind of got away from him. Last week against the Patriots, there were operational issues late in that game too, which were not great. But Tua, from a decision-making standpoint, it wasn't great. Then, and I heard you guys talking about this in the last segment, there's Tua's version saying, hey, he just made a great play. There's McDaniel's version saying the ball's got to go to the flat. When I watched that play back, and I am not, a quarterback guru, you certainly could follow up, Rich. You've got enough of those guys in the rotation on this show. But that play, which is a concept, by the way, the Dolphins don't run a lot. I know that there was a comment made by Terrell Bernard that, we saw things on tape. They don't run that play a whole lot. When I watched that play and knowing what it's supposed to look like, the whole thing looks rushed. Watch Tua Tagovailoa on that play. He's in the shotgun or the pistol on that play, but there's still supposed to be a drop. He kind of gets it and doesn't entirely look off the flat, and then just kind of comes back and his feet are stuck in cement. The whole thing just looked like it was sped up. And so when the timing is off and the angles are off, if there's things with your drop or the timing of the play, that creates opportunities for defenders to make plays on the football. There's obviously other things that happened in that game last night. The Zach Sealer punt block. Why are they trying to block the punt? Why is Zach Sealer on the field? Why is Zach Sealer anywhere near Bill Burr, or the new punter, Cameron Johnston for the Bills? And then the Jordan Brooks one, where it looks to me, I've watched that play back because it was running over and over on a loop on TV this morning. I've watched it 10 times. It looks like Brooks is kind of, he maybe is giving him the business a little extra, but he's trying to ease off and he kind of falls awkwardly. Official throws the flag. You just can't put yourself in that type of a position. But in terms of, if you're looking for, has Mike McDaniel lost the locker room? Have the leaders bailed on this thing? Does Tyreek Hill look like a guy who's going to push the eject button? I don't sense any of that there, and I don't sense that in the building. The other part of this, Rich, and I know you alluded to this as well, the Dolphins are very much tied to Tua for the 2026 season. He is due, forget the cap hits if you cut him, he is due $54 million fully guaranteed in 2026. And if he's still on your roster, I think it's the third day of the league year in March, which when you own $54 million fully guaranteed, it's a good bet he is. Another $3 million in 2027 becomes fully guaranteed. So if you move on from, let's say, Mike McDaniel right now, which again, I've never gotten the sense that was a consideration 3 weeks into a 17-game season, what purpose is it serving? What are you trying to get out of the next 14 games? And oh, by the way, then you're locking yourself into, well, we have to hire a new head coach for 2026. And that head coach is going to be told, all right, we got $54 million in Tua. What are you going to do with him? This has to be your quarterback. That may not be palatable to a lot of people. I mean, there's not enough said, and I don't mean to just be a Mike McDaniel defender here, but there is not enough talked about with the hoops that Mike McDaniel has to jump through on a week in, week out basis to design a game plan for a quarterback who can't get hit. You can't have him holding the ball. You can't have him designed runs. You can't really run quarterback sneaks. We've seen some of the, in relative terms, the least athletic quarterbacks in the NFL get exposed at times as runners. Tom Brady ran a pass route in the Super Bowl. It didn't end well, but they put that in the game plan. You can't do that with Tua. You can't run a naked bootleg. You're not going to run zone read with him just to keep people honest. If you watch the game last night, whether it's he's not trusting the protection, whether it's he doesn't want to get hit, or he's been told don't get hit, he's not stepping up in the pocket. Everything, when there's pressure, he's going out the back of the pocket and he's flushing left. And all those things combined make it really hard to produce on a week in and week out basis, that even when you draw up a play that maybe has a chance to succeed, he either doesn't go the right spot with it, or the timing and the drop is off. It's just a lot of different things that go into this. And having said all that, Rich, they've still, if you look at the schedule on the other side of the bye, they've got 4 or 5 winnable games coming up here where they've got a chance to get back in it, but they've got to get better as a team. They've got to clean up those self-inflicted errors, and Tua's got to play a lot better than he's played through these first 3 weeks.
Tom Pelissero with the latest on the Miami.
All right, guys, there you heard it. We obviously don't know if it was bad coaching, or if it was Tua's fault. Obviously, there's 2 different takes from Tom Pelissero and Kurt Warner. I tend to go with the Kurt Warner way of thinking, but also another thing for us to think about: are we stuck with Mike McDaniel and maybe a new GM? Is Ross only going to fire the GM if things go bad, and we're going to be stuck with Mike McDaniel and Tua for another year because of money? That's things to think about, guys. But leave me your comments down below what you think of everything that's going on wrong with the Dolphins. And like always, stay positive, stay on your grind, and go Dolphins.